Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show's about to begin. Paul, let's put on a show.
Let's go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Golden Nuggets. And today I'm joined by Paul Christodoulou. No, I've got it wrong again. I was saying Paul Christodoulou because that's
right.
how it sounds like it should be said, but it's actually Paul Christodoulou.
That's it, exactly.
Right.
Spot on.
He is a prominent figure in the Dubai real estate market. He is the CEO of AQUA Properties, and AQUA, you've been around forever.
Wow.
You've got your ORN number, which is office registration number, is 303.
Yeah.
And just to give us some context, does that mean you're like the 303rd agency in Dubai?
Yeah. I wasn't part of the company at the time, but yeah, back in 2005, when the company was launched and started and whatever else, we were the 303rd company to launch, which is cool, I think, to be cool. that long in the market.
What's your ORN number? Hold on, what's it called? BRN number.
36125?
Can we just make it clear?
Or 37125, I'm not 100% sure.
It starts with a 3,
yeah.
So that means you're old school. And for those of you that don't know, it's obviously in numerical order, the number of the broker numbers. So if your broker number starts with a 3, you're old school. If it starts with a 2 or a 1, you're old school.
Okay.
Mine was a 41905.
Okay.
And I got that in 2017.
Okay.
So if you're a 5 agent, if your number starts with 5, you're probably post-COVID.
Yeah, I guess so.
And we're now in the 6s, I think. So
I got mine in 2010, I think it was.
Old school.
Because there was a period where it wasn't running 2009. It was like the original phase 1 of the course and the exam, which doesn't actually exist anymore.
Yeah, but they're still dishing out those numbers, aren't they?
Digital cards only.
Right, we are taking it back to real estate basics with Paul today, because you're going to drop a lot of golden nuggets for the industry, for real estate agents. But first, I just want to hear a bit about your background, how you got into real estate, and how you became the CEO of AQUA Properties.
Okay, long journey. If I can shrink it down, I was an investor in Dubai real estate. 2001, I first came to Dubai, and this place had crazy energy back then, and real estate had only just 2002 was when it really kind of started. And I kept coming back every year, and I ended up investing in the market, being based in London, and started getting phone calls about the property and whatnot. And then I came here. I moved here full time. And when I moved
Which
here
year?
So I moved here on April the 3rd, 2008. Okay, that's when I moved here full time.
Yeah.
And I had quite a few investments around town, mostly on the Palm because I like waterfront. And when I first moved here, so my background is actually in hospitality. So my family background, we have a lot of nightclubs, restaurants, and bars. And my father was I guess now it'd be called a CFO of a big rock group, so he was the business side of it rather than the music side of it.
A rock band?
Yeah, Pink Floyd.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, so even your PR and marketing lady didn't know. She's like, in the background.
Yeah. So we've got the platinum discs when we did the Dark Side of the Moon and the Wall and whatever else.
Yeah.
So we have all that, and but pure business. And so when I came here, I actually came here to open up a Ministry of Sound.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I spent a couple of months up at the Westin in Marina, which was going to, as you drive up the Westin on the right side, I can't remember the name of the venue, that was going to be a Ministry of Sound. So we had all the things in play. I was in a hard hat and a pair of shorts and we were doing designs. Yeah. Anyway, it didn't happen in the end.
Were you an old school garage head, or was it mostly house and drum and bass?
Okay, so when I run the clubs, we had a variety of nightclubs, but I was at that time, because we were the same age, I was doing a lot of the London parties for the garage scene, kind of late 90s.
Do you know what? We're going to have to take a pause here. Because I was like a major Garage Nation, Sun City, Exposure.
Okay, so I know all the guys. I know the guys from Twice as Nice. Jason Kay is a really good friend of mine. He passed away last year. Mike Roughcut Lloyd, Timmy.
No way.
All those guys I know really, really well.
Okay, I'm sure we crossed many a path in Coliseum or 1999 to Ayia Napa, 2000,
definitely
99.
Napa. Yeah.
I knew your face looked familiar. Okay. So when he says hospitality, I was thinking you were going to say hotels and
No,
it's
definitely
like
not.
the grime scene.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was quite fortunate growing up. I mean, it was hard work because you work in a lot of hours, and we had a variety of nightclubs from like your typical student nightclub to your more posh club, shall we say? And then we had a not a garage club, but that's basically what it did. And I put that on when I was 19.
Okay.
So I was the youngest licensee in England to run a nightclub. And then we started doing the events, and I was doing, we did SE1, I did Coliseum, I did all those venues, and we had our own club. So then they were mostly out in Romford. So we had Hollywood's in Romford, we owned, and then we had another couple of clubs. So
I never made it that far.
Yeah,
Romford.
and then just after that, we went into more of the house scene. So yeah, I did events abroad. It was fun. It was a great journey, a really good experience. And then obviously when I came here, it was kind of, I was still doing it here. So I did Ministry of Sound here. I was doing events here in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. And but it wasn't fulfilling enough. But I was still doing some investments, and then obviously when the market took a downturn, I saw it as an opportunity still. And basically I was going out looking at properties, and the people that were showing me around, like I said to you before, we pulled up outside a villa on the Palm, and the agent, we step outside the car, and he says to me, "This is a 4-bedroom atrium entry." But I knew just by looking at it, it was a 5-bedroom central rotunda.
So what are you talking about?
And this guy turned up in a really nice car.
Yeah.
So if he can not know the right information, turn up in a flash car, what's he doing? What's going on here? So I knew real estate from the perspective of being the investor. And then somebody I knew set up a company focusing on the high end called Lux Habitat. It just started. And I had the opportunity, I think, to become employee number 3. And then I said, you know what, I want to see it from the inside. And that's how the journey started.
Amazing. Okay. Right. So we're going to take it, you've taken it back to your basics. We're going to take it back to the basics of real estate. And one thing, we had a chat before we came on, and you told me that you're constantly receiving cold calls, and people don't know it's you because your name on the database is Pavlos. So could you just tell us what your experience has been like on the receiving end of these cold calls? 90%
of them are useless. It's your very typical, are you looking to buy, looking to sell? And it literally is that. And for me, you're not adding any value to any client there. Every now and then you get some decent calls, and actually I have a conversation with them. So I mean, and also
you pull them up sometimes and say, "Well, no, but brush up your."
Listen, I mean, I had a guy the other day. He rang, and it was not good. So I said to him, "Why are you doing this?" I said,
What did he say?
Well, I had one guy phone me up, and he said, "Are you looking? Did you have anything in Dubai to sell?" And I said, "Dubai,
just blanket Dubai,
just Dubai." And I said, anywhere. He said, "Anywhere in Dubai." I said, my friend, if I have somewhere specific that I'm looking to sell, I'm not going to give it to you because you're not a specialist. You're just ringing me up in a very general, question. Whereas when you get people that call you and they're quite specific and they have a bit more information, they try and add value to the call. They try and keep you on the call for more than 10 seconds. That's a conversation. So at least say, well, look, this is what I've got. I might be looking to sell it. Keep my details, and when I'm at that stage, call me back, or I'll phone you and we take it from there.
Yeah. He probably, the call before you, it might have been someone saying, yeah, I've got something to sell in the Palm. Meanwhile, he's a JVC specialist. So he probably thought, next call I make, I'm just saying Dubai.
Yes.
So let's talk about specialization. Like, do you believe in niching down into an area or a price bracket, or?
I believe in niching down to an area.
Okay.
Yeah. I think you have to become a specialist or something. Again, likewise, a big word for me and my team know this is empathy. How can you connect with a client if you have
no clue?
You don't have, bear in mind, if they're an investor or an end user and they live in that community, they know a lot. So they know when you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
like the rotunda.
Same kind of example. Yeah. Okay. I mean, and when you can reach out to a client and I think the other thing is this: clients get bombarded, right? And I say to my guys that the client needs to look at you on the same level, not look down at you because you don't know what you're talking about.
That's why you shouldn't do all of this like, sir, Mr.
So I think, if you are going to speak to somebody about a product or a service that you want to add value and offer to them, at least do your homework before you go in there, prepare. It's I've always believed in being a specialist, and some people choose differently. If you're an off-plan agent, for example, some people believe it's about working within a certain price bracket, or it could be working with a certain developer only. My argument is whatever you decide to do as a level of specialization, do it. I have an old team member of mine. His angle with his clients when they used to come in, he had a lot of international clients, was that he used to go partying with them, right? And that worked for him. He built that relationship, and that was his vibe, and that's served him very well since.
So specializing in a particular area, focus down, niche down.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to look, we have several branches across Dubai, and one of the reasons why we have that is that I don't want the guys to be cold calling everybody all the time or doing this or doing that. So we have a local office, and the whole point of having branches across Dubai is it's super convenient for the agent.
Yeah. I've got to say, I mean, I only know one of your branches, and that's the one on Sheikh Zayed Road. I'm sure you've all seen that if you're driving up or down Sheikh Zayed Road. Big corner, AQUA Properties by which metro station is it?
Equity?
Equity.
Yes,
Equitiva. No, Equity. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. And I
you don't get the metro, do you?
So no, but. Yeah, so that's the main office. So that's the head office, 15,000 square feet. But we took a business model which was actually, to go to the client, and as such, we kind of, we decided to get branch offices no more than 1,500 square feet. They're not going to be huge, and it's basically about positioning ourselves. So it helps the agent. For example, if I'm an agent working in Business Bay, but my area of focus is 15 kilometers away, there and back with the traffic, it's difficult. Whereas, the idea for us is that we kind of have a few offices dotted around. We have 4. We're in Blue Waters, Serena, Port de la Mer, and Sheikh Zayed Road.
Oh, Port de la Mer. Okay.
Yeah, that opened about 6 weeks ago.
Okay. Oh, congratulations.
And thank you. Yeah, that's doing really well so far. But we get a lot of.
It's like a retail office, one of the retail spaces.
Yeah. So it's right down in the plaza level in Le Côte, and again, that area will develop over time. But the idea is that we have a team members that work there. They focus in the area. I mean, a lot of the people that actually work out of our offices actually live there, which I think is also super important as well. And 2 of them have even bought in the community, which is even better. But it's about being there for the agent and obviously for the client. It means you just have to come downstairs or within a few kilometres rather than have to drive really far.
Okay, we're going to zoom out now into Dubai. Looking over on top of Dubai, why Dubai? So this is something that you're quite passionate about. And could you just kind of give us obviously you decided to move here, you saw the opportunity, and I want to break it down into like why families are moving here, why business people, entrepreneurs are moving here, and why ultra high net worth are moving to Dubai.
I think for families, I think for all of them, it's the easy answers. From a family perspective, it's safe, schooling's good, lifestyle is fantastic, and quality of healthcare. I think this is just on a macro level for the families. For ultra high net worth individuals, for example, I think the connectivity through via Emirates or other networks is fantastic. It's super business friendly, ease of business, low taxation. And the world is moving east. So Dubai is perfectly positioned as a hub.
And I'm seeing a lot of real estate professionals. Of course, we're used to getting them from the UK. But I'm seeing more and more coming from the UK and the US and other parts of Europe. Why?
Unlimited earning potential, no taxation on income, and the lifestyle. I mean, I think from when I first moved here to now, the opportunity is still there. I used to say that the dream of the American dream is now the Dubai dream. When I first came to Dubai, it was very much still like the Wild West. Everyone was a real estate broker. From the taxi driver to the concierge. But I think if you're a professional individual in this city, opportunity is fantastic.
Okay. And as a real estate agent, what value should you be adding? Again, we're taking it very back to basics. In your opinion, what value should agents be creating or adding?
Well, I think agents here, I mentioned the word earlier on, but empathy. I find that some agents are so focused on the sale itself rather than actually understanding the client's needs, wants. And I think that taking it right back to the very level of basics is the most important thing. People need to focus on building that relationship, adds value there. You get to understand the individual, whether it be an investor or end user, you get to understand them better, and then you can drive that conversation forward.
And I always say it starts on the registration or the qualification. What are and I've been asking this quite frequently, like what are your killer questions when you're qualifying a client?
For a buyer?
Yeah.
Well, firstly, it's about understanding why. Why you're looking to buy. Is it again, because then it's an investment, or is it are you an end user looking to live there? Because once you have the answer to that, you can then take the conversation in very different ways. I think then it comes down to, what have you seen? Did you like it? Didn't you like it? And then what did you see?
Yeah.
So maybe you can get some unit numbers, and then obviously try and find out what they've seen. And
You'll be like, which one? Oh, is that the one on the corner? What number is it? Oh, yeah.
Oh, I've got that one. Note that one down. Yeah. So I think it's a multitude of questions, and ultimately what you're trying to do is to build a picture, to see where the client is looking to invest or live, and B, if they're actually in a position to purchase now.
Yeah.
Because you get a lot of people that I don't want to call them window shoppers, but they're just not necessarily at that stage. Doesn't mean you don't deal with them. It just you need to know where they are. Sales is like spinning plates, right? You've got to have a lot spinning. And it's just about kind of putting all your ducks in a row.
Because the question that you'll typically get asked immediately, especially if it's a rookie agent, is what's your budget, cash or mortgage? They seem to be the main two questions that people don't tend to veer from. But when you speak to the experienced agents, they don't ask that question.
Yes.
The fact that you've called me about that property, I know what you're...
Yeah, so I'm not a big fan of that word, what's your budget? I mean, it's very crass. And if someone's budget is relatively low, then it's like you're digging them out, as it were. So, I mean, ultimately, yes, you need to understand their buying power and their spend, but there's a way to do it. So just by throwing in straight away, what's your budget? It's like, what's your desired purchase price? There's just a way to go about it. Ultimately, yes, though, you do need the answers to those questions.
Okay. And then for listings, right? So stock is king. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Okay,
Totally.
right. Making sure we're on the same page. So you're not going to get the leads. You're not going to get the buyers if you don't have something online, or if you don't have something to attract them with. So I think the first step is to get the listings. So what would your golden nuggets be on getting listings?
Well, certainly getting listings is challenging. Years ago, when I was an agent, so I never cold called. I never cold called myself. I never cold called. I was never a fan of it. I didn't quite like it. I positioned myself well within the community. So, I used to hang around in the local coffee shop, and I used to get to know a few people. And then I managed to find one person, and we just connected. We just spoke. And it wasn't that hard pitch. It wasn't a hard sell. He then gave me his email address, and I then sent him an email about where I saw the market going within that community and where the current sales were. He says, I quite like the information. Can I share it with one or two of my friends? I said, of course. And then it just kind of mushroomed, and we went for a coffee and had a chat, and it moves on. I think the specialists now in these areas, they don't need to pitch as much.
Yeah.
People would come to them because they know who they are. But obviously, if I'm someone that's new going into the market now against someone who's super experienced, I think you can't beat experience, right? I think the only thing that you can do to try and stand out from the 90% of other fresh people is knowledge. I don't think people really delve enough into the community and really invest the time in themselves to understand it more, to allow them opportunity to meet those sellers.
Which is probably why you should focus on the community that you're living in.
Yeah.
Is the easiest.
Certainly the easiest.
And I suppose that's also why a lot of the newer agents are just focusing on off-plan, because that's the stock, they've got it, but it's so hard to find. But any strategies for finding buyers?
Oh, I don't think finding buyers is hard. For me, look, I've always been when I was a broker, I was always a
Back
seller's.
in the olden days.
Yeah, back in the day. I was always a seller's agent.
Yeah.
I find that if you can build a relationship with a seller, you have a much more of a chance to control the situation. If you're working with a buyer, buyers aren't loyal unless they've bought from you before. Right. If they've worked with you before, then they really are working with you. But until you kind of get to that stage, it's a challenge with buyers. So yeah, sellers are for me the key.
Okay. And then listing the property. Back to basics on listing. Any kind of do's and don'ts when it comes to advertising properties?
So I think it really depends who's doing it for you, because these days in some companies, the agents take the photos.
Oh gosh, no! With the iPhone, I mean the quality's good, but it's just
certainly improved. It's nice to have a BlackBerry. So
oh my god,
different then.
BB pin,
yeah. But for me, look, it's the basics. I mean, I don't allow our agents to take photos. We have a team. We have a marketing team of 8 18, 20. I always get told we need more people in marketing, but it's substantial.
He looks right at the marketing lady. Yeah.
It's substantial enough. But obviously, if needs be, then we expand. So, but for me, that's the most important thing, because I hate seeing photos online and the main image is of the bathroom and the toilet seat.
Big no, yeah.
I mean, I can't understand it. For me, the main image is the USB. I've seen listings online where it talks about stunning sea views, and it's of the kitchen.
Yeah.
If your title is something
stunning sea view,
then the first image has to be that stunning sea view. So, but this is like basic stuff.
Okay, and then moving away from, you've got the listing, you've got the properties live on the portal, you get the phone call, you're qualifying them, you ask the questions. Let's talk about the viewing, because I've seen some horrendous viewers. So what would be your 101 on the actual viewing, or showing as they like to call it in the US?
So the very first one, which is very simple for me, is if anyone in my team ever says to the client, the keys are at reception,
oh gosh,
go down there, they're fired.
Yeah.
Like, you're not adding any value, any service. How are you looking to build a relationship?
Yeah.
So that's like the most basic. And then for me, there's a strategy behind it. And if you've qualified correctly and you're showing, let's say, within a building, and you want to show them 2, 3, 4 options, never show more than that, because then it gets very confusing for the client. Get there early. I mean, I have to say, I have been that agent that's worked with an external agent, or one of my colleagues, I think, once or twice before over the years, and they say the unit's open. And you get there with the client, you meet them downstairs, you're all smiles, you shake hands, and you go up there, and as you open the door, it's locked.
Yeah.
And you want the world just to disappear and like swallow you up, because the client gives you a look of death.
Yeah.
And then you think, oh no. So avoid those situations. Get there earlier. Go inside. I mean, look, we're in June now.
Yeah.
So make sure the AC is on. Okay. Landlords that don't want to put the AC on, how are they going to do viewings in summer? If it's on a studio, 1 bed, fine. If you're talking a 5-bedroom villa, it's not going to happen. Yeah. Go in, flush the toilet. I mean, these are like,
the smell can, the stagnant.
It's basic stuff, but you have to, again, empathy with the client. If they're going to come in, especially if it's a family,
first impressions.
you have to conduct the viewing as you would expect. I always say, try not to say too much. More answer questions that they ask, because you don't want to be seen as someone that's overselling
or over opinionated.
I mean, people want facts with a little bit of opinion. They don't just want full on. But I also think when you're doing the viewings, be honest with people. If there is something being built next door, mention it, because they have eyes. They're going to see it themselves. So be honest, be professional, be upfront, be on time, be early, ensure that the property is open. And then again, if during the process, I mean, the old rule of thumb that we used to have was that, try and show 4 properties and make the third one was like the one that you really, don't say the best till last, because then they think you planned it. But try and make that the third property. But if it's about really ensuring that is one you genuinely believe
is going to be the one.
Is the one for them, because that's the information that you've been given.
Okay, and that same agent that doesn't turn up to the viewing is probably also not going to turn up to the transfer office, right?
Correct.
How do you feel about that one?
Yeah.
I know you're quite vocal about that.
Well, okay, so this was just a story we spoke about before coming on, and but it was a mad one. So I completed a sale back in 2011, I think it was, a long time ago, and it was 16 million, which is a lot then, on a villa in Aldawi, which was one of my main focus areas, to be honest. And I represented the seller, as I always did, and we did the deal. The paperwork, I did all the paperwork. The other agent wasn't that engaged. Fine, that's fine by me. I'd rather do everything myself. I know I can't blame anyone else then.
Yeah.
Right? And then they never turned up for the transfer. Okay, fine. They earned the same as me. And then 6 or so weeks later on, I got a phone call from a number I didn't have saved, and it was the client. And they said,
the buyer who was being represented.
And they said, look, I'm interested. So they bought a 6-bedroom, 16 million dirham villa in Aldawi, and they wanted to buy a studio in the address downtown.
Okay.
And my office at the time was opposite in Boulevard Plaza. So I had a very senior member of the team who's still around now, and he covered the building. So we went over. Look, it's a studio, right?
Yeah.
So we went over to the building. We had a coffee downstairs in Calabar. I don't think that exists anymore.
No.
And then we went upstairs and, opened the door.
Yeah.
And
Tight squeeze, 3 of you in the studio. Yeah.
Well, I think about 6 of us, right?
Oh gosh.
And it's a studio. So I just stood by the door and I let my colleague do the thing. And then we went back downstairs and the client turned around to me, surprisingly at the time, it was the first time I was tested. And he said to me, when I bought a 16 million dirham villa, I got great service from you. I wanted to understand if I went from a 16 million dirham villa to a 1 million studio, I would still get the same level of service. My automatic reply is, look, for me it's irrelevant. You're a client. I would expect to receive service if I were you. So that's what I give. And then he said, okay, great. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I don't actually want to buy the studio. However, I want to give you 100 million dirhams. And I would like you to invest over the next 5-6 years.
You're probably like, yes.
And work with me. I was like that. My colleague was with me, was the opposite of that. But yeah, I mean, again, I think it's, even though he wasn't being represented by me, he appreciated the effort that went into the whole transfer and everything else. I think it's important to not judge a book by its cover and to work well with clients.
100%. And that agent who didn't turn up to the transfer office, I mean, I don't know what they were thinking, but they've missed out on that opportunity that you now got. Talk to us about judging a book by its cover, because that happens too. There's a lot of that, whether it's by type of buyer, whether it's price bracket. In your scenario, is a price bracket, or studios. Like, people might turn their nose up at someone who's buying a studio.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've got 2 examples. One also old and one last Saturday. I did a sale, again, going back a long time ago, again in Al Barari, and it was a gentleman turned up, and it was like a 25-year-old Mitsubishi Pajero. And this was when the project was just handing over phase 1. And so it was literally phase 1 of Al Barari, and we had to go over sand dunes. And he said, I'll jump in my 25-year-old Pajero. Yeah. And we had to squeeze in with his kids and his wife, and it was like, it was a mess. And I was thinking, oh, wow, what a mess. And we pulled up outside the property, and long story short, the deal was done. But again, if you'd looked at the car, you would judge the book. You wouldn't have necessarily, or I would anyway, because that's just how I am. But I think some people wouldn't give them the time of day, which is wrong. The recent example from Saturday just gone, a member of my team, he never had any real estate experience, started with me maybe 5-6 years ago. One of the early leads he had was a rental in Marina, as a lot of people start off, right? Yeah. And it was 160,000 dirham rental. 2 or 3 years after that, the chap bought a 2-bed in downtown. And then on Saturday, he spent 41 million on an investment through my agent. And that was a rental lead.
Wow.
So I think that's really important.
And I think people really underestimate the power of those original leads. Like, tenants aren't going to stay tenants forever.
100%.
And they might just be tenants because they're testing out the area. But they may be super wealthy and you just don't know about it.
Yeah.
You've just pigeonholed them as tenant.
So I think the other thing is this. For me, Dubai is a drug, right? And once you've tasted it, it's addictive. And people come here. Again, when I first moved here, it was like, if you've been here for more than 3 years, it was like, whoa, long time.
Old time.
But I think once people come to Dubai, they live here, they experience it, they enjoy the lifestyle and everything else that goes with it, things change. And people that actually had planned in their mind just to be tenants always turn into buyers.
Eventually, they will become a buyer. So stay in touch with them.
100%.
And how would you stay in touch with them, actually? I always made a note of people's birthdays.
100%. Birthdays are a good one.
Yeah.
Birthdays are a really good one. Yeah. So,
but whatever you do, don't say happy birthday. Do you want to buy or sell?
Yeah. No. I believe in the whole. It's about building relationships. People believe they're in the sales industry. They're not in the sales industry. The sales industry and the sale itself is a byproduct of being a human being.
Yes. And
getting to know people and building on a relationship. And once you have that, it just kind of morphs, and you'll get the referrals. Something people are scared to talk about. But I always tell my guys, if you've done well and someone's given you a 5-star Google review, I always ask, make sure that you get the referral.
Yeah. And how do you ask for it? Because people maybe just don't know, like they feel like they're begging or something. How would you just approach someone?
I just ask
Just
straight away.
straight up,
I
yeah.
ask straight away. Look, if I built a relevant relationship with someone, if the transfer has happened and the client isn't overly happy, then that's not going to happen
Yeah.
regardless, right? So
Yeah.
I wouldn't even open
Yeah.
that conversation. But if you've built a bit of a relationship and, you know, husband, wife, single man, woman, whatever the investor, whatever it is, and it's all gone well, you know, I would maybe a week after transfer reach out to them and say, you know what, have you got time for a coffee? Just have a catch up, and then I'll just bring it in. You know, if you have anyone else looking, please do recommend me. Can definitely give me a 5-star review, and then I'll just keep in contact because
Okay.
you never know where that conversation goes. I mean, I've
Exactly.
been invited to weddings. I met my clients in London quite a few times, or wherever they
You
are
become
in the world.
friends, yeah.
Yeah. And it's a different experience, and they look at you as a friend. You know, because you are an advisor, not a salesperson.
Okay, and so a lot of people are making the connection with sales, marketing, social media. They're kind of, you know, putting themselves out there on social media. I mean, of course, the agencies are handling the digital marketing side, but agents themselves are doing reels, you know, stories and everything, trying to attract buyers. What's your opinion on that? Because I've been very pro it, but the more leaders that I've been speaking to are just like, our top agents don't do any social media.
Okay, so our top agents are, like most companies, they're more experienced, and
They don't do it.
They
Yeah.
don't. They don't. The chap who did the big deal the other day, no social media. So I have my own team. Within the company, we have several divisions, and then I have a platinum tier team.
Oh, is that the private office?
I won't go that far, but
call them.
kind of. But,
Yeah.
it is the equivalent. So, and these are guys that I deal with institutions, family offices,
Yeah.
and I'll just have a long-term relationship with people. And there's 8 guys and girls in that team, and I think 2 of them do social media well.
Yeah.
2 do social media very well, actually. But apart from that, they don't really do it as much. But I guess it's, you know, if you're starting out, for example, you've got to build a brand for yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's very important, that you build that personal brand. Yes, the company's going to do marketing on a company level, but it's also very important for you as that individual to try and work on a brand. I mean, my guys who do close through social, a lot of it is via YouTube. I think
Interesting, yeah.
Instagram certainly generates inquiries, and we as a company certainly close through Meta. But YouTube has proven for individual agents much more of a success.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing is this: what people share on Instagram, let's say, isn't necessarily what they should be sharing on LinkedIn.
Yes, different kind of vibe, different.
Yeah.
And people are in a different mood when they're in LinkedIn. It's more professional. You wouldn't turn up to LinkedIn in business casual, put it that way. Oh no, maybe business. You wouldn't turn up in casual to
100%.
LinkedIn. Yeah.
100%.
But funny, because actually Alessia, who is the original artist of this painting right here, she said she loves putting fun stuff on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
She's like, how boring is it to just go through professional? She's like, wouldn't it be fun to just like boring LinkedIn post, boring article, and then something fun?
Yeah.
Like, it'll make you stop in your tracks.
Yeah. No, I think everyone's got to do what works for them. Okay. I never used to put. So I do some videos with the team on properties that they have for sale across our offices, high end, luxury, whatever the case may be. And I never used to put that on LinkedIn. It was always super corporate. But then I started putting this on just to kind of change it a little bit. I haven't gone as I'm not as funny as Alessia, to be fair, but I haven't kind of gone there yet. But I put the videos on, and yes, you do get more engagement. But I think initially, if you are a newer agent, the fact that you aren't reaching out to your clients on LinkedIn is a big problem.
Yeah.
You have to, I mean, for me, it's as soon as I get an inquiry, if I were an agent, and I tell my guys, firstly, Google the client, find out a bit more about them,
Yeah.
do your homework on them, and then connect with them on LinkedIn.
And it's not stalking. It's not like you're stalking the client. It's just doing your, A, a bit of due diligence, and B, trying to see what you could have in common with this person, or talking points, or...
Yeah, I think it's super important that you kind of do that, because, again, going back to empathy, is the fact that if I'm dealing with a couple, let's say they're French, for example, I would then, for example, try and understand where they want to be based, where
Schools.
are they at school? If not, then do you know what? I used to ring up, I think it was Georges Pompidou, the French school not far from Barari, and I used to understand what the prices were.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was like 27, 28, I think I was. But I knew that's what the client would
Is gonna
would
want
need
to
to
know.
know.
Yeah.
And ultimately, by doing that over and above, just means that when they do want to buy, sell, invest, my name is there.
Yeah.
And that's all that it's about.
Okay. So we've covered your top tips for qualifying buyers, doing a viewing, getting a listing, doing a viewing. You're on the viewing, you've got to close for the offer, extracting an offer. Top tips, golden nuggets from Paul Christodoulou.
I think obviously negotiation is key, but it all comes down to the fact that if you've done your homework correctly, because as much as you're trying to qualify, the client's qualifying you as well.
True.
Okay. So I think as long as you've been upfront and as long as you've set expectations, I think this is also really important, expectations, because I've been in the position before where a team member gets to the end of a negotiation and then right at the very end, they throw into the seller that they're after seller's fees. That's not setting expectations correctly. Right. So if you've set expectations right throughout the entire deal, you've been upfront with all parties, you've been honest with all parties, I think it's just a natural conversation. You know, so firstly, I'll try and handle any objections. What objections do you have to why you can't go to that next stage? And if there are no objections, and
how do you, going back to that, how do you ask, like how do you get to the stage where they can open up to you about any objections they have?
I'm just upfront. I think it's just about being upfront. I think a lot of times people are scared to ask the right questions, and you're not doing yourself or the client any favors by this. You know, if you had a brief to see ABC, and we've seen ABC, you know, what's the feedback? What do you think about the properties that we've seen? Is there anything else you'd like to change? If not, we can look at a different option, for example. So if you've ticked all of the boxes, and the last box to be ticked is an offer. The offer, that's just a conversation. You know, where are we at now? Where are we going? Are you in a position now to maybe have that conversation? Obviously, you've asked the right questions before that to ensure that the client is at that stage. You know, if they are a mortgage buyer, they have pre-approval.
They've got 3 months. They've got 3 months to find something.
So you've actually seen it, rather than you get into the stage and then you upset your seller when it turns out the client isn't ready. They have no cash, or the cash has to come over from wherever it may be. You know, you're not kind of managing the situation correctly. So I think that's why about managing expectations, being upfront, having that conversation, and trying to move the deal onto the next stage.
Because I think it's so important that. And that's probably why it's so important not to inflict your personal opinion on a property, going around saying, oh, I love this, oh, I really like this, because then your buyer or your tenant is going to feel like, oh, they really like it, I can't stand it. But because they really like it, I don't want to offend them by telling them how I feel.
Yes.
So my thing to agents is just don't cast your opinion. Just state facts, but don't give your opinion. Because when you ask, you know, can you see yourself living here? Or when you ask, you know, do you want to place an offer on this property? They're just going to fob you off with an excuse.
Yeah. I think you know, some agents just go off on a tangent as if they're the ones actually buying the property. Whereas they have to take a step back. I think it's quite important that they do take that literally a step back and see it again from an overview. And then if the client is in that position, or you can see that they're naturally talking more about a specific property, then you know where the conversation is going to go to which property. And then you just give them the facts and the figures. So I think that's when it's important to listen.
Okay, you've got the offer. Next steps. What are the critical factors to make sure that deal closes? Apart from turning up at the transfer office, but
yeah. Well, in terms of what? In terms of
making sure that, okay, you get from offer, you smooth negotiation, all the way to closing that transaction.
So depending on the transaction, cash, mortgage, whatever the case may be. Obviously, if it's off plan, that's a very different experience because obviously you're working with a developer partner. If it's from a resale perspective, so we use in-house conveyancing department. It's so important. I mean, agents don't really understand the value of conveyancing. Or sales progression, or whatever you want to call it, right? And I think that's the you know, if you've taken a client all the way on, because it's a journey and it's an experience to purchase property. And if you get to that very end stage, and let's say the contract is signed, the Form F is done, everything's done online, as an agent you can switch off, but that's the most crucial time to not switch off. So actually having someone who's actually role and responsibilities to get it to transfer at the trustee's office is vital, because if it's tenanted, you need to make sure that there's paperwork in place. You need to make sure that someone's dealing with the bank. And the issue you have as the agent, as far as you're concerned, it's done, pending transfer. you now move on to the next transaction. Well, that deal isn't done yet. Yes, it's signed, but I've seen deals collapse at a transfer office. You know,
Gosh,
because something wasn't
yeah.
done right, or the paperwork isn't in play. I've seen buyer and seller literally, you know, go off at each other.
Yeah.
So, you know, again, managing expectations, getting it to not only the final stage where it's signed and legally binding, but getting to that transfer is super important. So
Yeah.
yes, we use conveyancing to ensure that everything is concluded, and then obviously it's then down to you to then follow up post transfer, congratulate them on the new purchase, okay, flowers, a gift, whatever the case may be, and then move on.
Because I had Nathan Kearney on the show, and we were talking about recruitment and retention, and when he's coined this phrase called "mind the gap."
Okay.
I mean, he didn't coin the phrase,
gonna
but
say,
he's
yeah,
applied the phrase "mind the gap" to recruitment, and I actually think it really applies here. So he said, between offer and starting a job, so much can happen. Like, people think it's just a case of get the offer letter out, start dates agreed, and then the candidate will join. 90% will fall down the cracks. So you've got to mind that gap. So the same with, you get an offer, to get to transfer, there's a good chance, well, you have to mind the gap because anything could go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually cool. Well done, Nathan. I like that. Yeah.
Mind the gap.
Yeah,
We're gonna take that into a conveyancing and sales progression. Okay, and then beyond the sale. As you said, you stay in touch. You go to weddings. You stay friends. How do you continue to nurture those relationships for people that are dealing with tenants? How do they make sure that they're still in touch with them to the point that they become buyers?
Well, I think it's just about, again, it's about just being friendly. And this can only apply, though, to people that actually you've had a connection with. Yeah. If you've not had a connection with someone, whether it be a tenant or a buyer or seller, whatever the case may be.
Don't force it.
Yeah, sometimes you just can't do it. There are some individuals that look at you as just a means to an end. Right? You're just there to do my job, or to do a job. Once it's done, I don't need to see you anymore. I have no interest in building a relationship with you, and that's it.
Yeah.
And don't force it. It's not going to work. But with those people that there is a connection, enhance it. Ultimately, I mean, I had a buddy of mine who is a client, I'm not quite sure, and he was in town last week on his way to Mauritius, and he wanted to have a catch up for a coffee and just a general catch up.
Yeah.
You know, he's still quite influential in the community where he used to live. We don't really talk that much about it. It's just a chat about life, football, sports, what's going on. He's looking forward to the Euros this year, you know. But of course, I know he has that network and so on and so forth. But again, we're friends. I think that's the important thing. You take that conversation with someone that you connect with, and it just naturally progresses.
Yeah, and someone, I can't remember who, but was telling me when they're with a client on the way to viewings, or either driving to the property or driving to the project, or in between viewings, they don't do any property talk. It's just kind of getting to know them.
Super important. Super important. I mean, it's like, you know, again, if you're driving in a car with a client, in an ideal scenario, your car is big enough to take the client and husband, wife, whatever the family, whatever the case may be. Just so again, you can just chat, because ultimately, you're building rapport. You're building rapport, and you're building a picture. So you don't need to talk about the real estate side of things to understand more about the client. It's understanding more about what makes them tick. And I think the other thing is that people seem to get wrong sometimes is your job is to ascertain what are the needs and the wants. Right? I need a 2-bed.
Yeah.
But I want a 6-bed. Right? So I think that's very, very important as well. So you're ultimately trying to save them time and yourself time.
Can you go deeper into that needs and wants? Because I think it's very important.
Well, I think, you know, people who are aspirational in their mindset, and if someone at this stage is looking for a certain type of property, what you don't want to end up doing is being a tour guide. So, for example, you end up showing properties in, say, Emirates Hills. Okay, what's it? Champagne taste, lemonade budget or something. Like so, and I think that's important because everybody wants to see something luxurious. We've all seen the TV shows and whatnot, but ultimately, it's your responsibility to ensure that okay, if that person is the right kind of person for that property, great. Even if it's in 12 months' time, not an issue at all. However, they may never be at that stage, and they end up buying a 1-bed in Marina.
Yeah.
So that really is about time, because time is money. And I think people just end up becoming a tour guide.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really important, the whole qualification process, to make sure that it's not dead.
And you've been through you've been on the other side, you've been an investor, a home buyer. And when I bought property, what I originally asked the agent for is not what I ended up buying. And I think if you ask anyone, what was the first thing what you called the first agent on your home search, whatever you said to them, I guarantee you is not what they ended up buying. So do you have the similar stories? Okay.
Of course, it happens all the time. We had a client, he wasn't a big deal. It was nothing crazy, but it was just one of those ironic stories. He was opening a DMCC company, and as such, so he was looking at a unit in JLT. So it was a relatively small sale, and but the client, the husband liked it, but the wife didn't like it.
Yeah.
And I said to my guy, it's not going to happen. Forget it. If the wife doesn't like it,
forget it.
She's the boss, right?
Yeah.
So they ended up buying a 2-bedroom in Index Tower. So the budget went up,
that's where I live,
and the geographic location completely changed.
Yeah, so from JLT to DIFC, you couldn't get further apart.
Completely, chalk and cheese. So yes, now commute every day. I guess he's going against the traffic, which works for him. But yeah, that happens very commonly. A lot of people, especially when they're new, they don't know where they want to be.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's important people do rent. You come over to Dubai, you stay here for a year, you rent somewhere, you work out if that is for you, and if not, which area that does make more sense.
Yeah. And you might think, I definitely want a villa, but then if you see a nice enough apartment, you could shift the property type completely.
Yeah, I mean, look, some people want more hassle-free. So, a villa comes with more hassle. You know, the landscaping, the maintenance, the swimming pool, all these are added costs. So even though the service charge is a lot less than what it would be in an apartment building, it's all taken care of for you.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got quite popular with home buyers now watching the show. So there is a chapter marker for home buyer tips. I want you to talk to your clients, your customers. What would be your top 3 tips for home buyers?
Okay, now when it comes to the top 3, I think the 3 really important ones is 1, do your homework. Kind of try and understand where you're looking to live, invest. And then once you think you've done your homework, then reach out to an agent/agency that is a professional within the area.
Yeah.
You've seen their videos, you've gone on their LinkedIn, you understand how many listings they have.
You've checked their BRN number,
Exactly.
ORN number.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you're an agent and you've got like 2 listings in an area, how are you a specialist, right? So you have to have transaction history. Speak to the agent about what they've done before. And just from a general conversation, you'll be able to pick up if they really know the area or not. They can tell you about the local restaurants, what's really good to eat, these kind of things, how far it is to the nearest school. And I think the third point, because that was 2 kind of there, the third point is actually to be ready. I think
Explain.
a lot of clients go out, they view properties, and they find something they really like, but they're not in a position to commit because they've maybe not got the mortgage
in place,
and or the funds. They may have cash, but they're not necessarily here. So I'd say, get all your ducks in a row. Do your due diligence on the agent, on the agency. Do your homework on the area itself that you think you want to buy in, and then ensure that all the funds are in place or the process is starting to get them over. I think once you've got those 3 in play, then you have a much higher chance of success.
Converting, yeah. Because I spoke to a friend the other day, and she was she'd just gone through the mortgage approval process, and she was like, I did not realize how painful it would be, how much paperwork was involved to just get pre-approval.
Yes.
So I think people think that they can just, look on the portals first, go out shopping, and then they can just apply for a mortgage. It's not as simple as that.
I think some, especially if you're an owner of a business. So if you're an owner of a business, and that process is even longer.
Right.
You have to provide years accounts. Are they audited? So that is quite a large chunk that you have to do there if you are the owner. I mean, ultimately what I'm trying to say is get yourself ready in a position. It saves you and it saves the agent.
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, then it's the agent's responsibility to ask those questions to ensure that they've done their own due diligence and make sure that they're not wasting their time.
Absolutely. Okay. Any final golden nuggets?
Oh, I don't know.
We could go back to agents. We can go back to brokerage. We can go back to home buyers.
Oh, hang on. let me
We could
think
go
about
back
this.
to UK House and G.
Yeah, we're going old school. No, I think. Look, I think for me, if you know, an agent in this market has to really put themselves in the client's shoes. If your knowledge isn't on point, and this is actually quite an important thing. I have always found that so I did a pitch. Oh, this is real. 2 days ago, we had a team of 4 people in my office, and they were pitching an area. It was an area that I've invested in, so I know it really well. And I was asking them to just tell me about the area. And some of them were a bit nervous, but that's fine. That's understandable. Some of them had done their homework. For some of them, it was like pouring cream. It was smooth. They knew about the area. They could tell me about some of the last transactions. It was easy. You could see. For others, it was like getting a cup and pouring out nuts and bolts. You know, it was like they were trying to remember facts and figures, and they were trying to, you know, and ultimately they hadn't done what was necessary to ensure that they had enough product knowledge. And I think having that level of product knowledge is super important because you're relaxed when you speak with a client. It's smooth, and you're actually giving and adding value. You can talk about the nearest restaurants. You can talk about what's going on in the community, current trends, prices. So I think that's super important to ensure that you've got that level of experience behind you. And again, these are agents that can't beat someone with 5 years experience. All you can do is just try and educate yourself as much as possible. And I think that's important for agents to be proactive, not reactive.
Brilliant advice. And I forgot, actually, you had that BBC program.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. They were with us for 3 months. 2021, I think it was, but it aired in 2022. And
were you still wearing masks and stuff?
Well, it was a weird one because they said don't wear the masks. So I was like, okay, Home Ministry of Labour and that don't come in and do an inspection.
Yeah.
And some of the guys still did it if they were on the floor, but obviously from a management perspective, and when we were chatting and going about and showing them properties, we weren't wearing masks then. But no, it was interesting. I mean, it was interesting in the respect of post the show and post airing production and it going out. We got, you know, quite a flurry of CVs and whatnot. 1 or 2 guys, again, I said this off air, someone called me a few months ago and they were working at another real estate company, and after they said Pavlos, Christodoulou, and I said, no, it's Paul, and they went, oh, you were the BBC guy. Yeah. You're the guy, you know, because of you I came to Dubai. My natural response was, why are you not working with me then?
Right. I brought you all the way. I made you who you are. Yeah.
Right. But then ironically, maybe only about 4 months ago, I was going into Opus Tower in Business Bay I had a contractor meeting on a villa that I'm doing up. And the guy opened the door and he said, Mr. Christodoulou. And I said, yes. And he said, I just wanted to say hello. You know, I saw the show and I moved to Dubai. And I said, okay, great. Naturally, why are you not working with us?
Yeah.
And then about 10 days later on, I saw him in the office.
Come for an interview.
And he joined. And he's now part of his name's Sal, good guy. And he's part of our new Port de la Mer team, and he's doing well.
Brilliant.
So yeah.
So it is worth doing those shows because there's a lot. You know, there's $1 Million Listing. There's Buying London now in the UK, and you kind of wonder, like, is it valuable to the business or the personal brand?
We were super conscious about it because you can either get like a Daily Mail take on Dubai, or you can get reality. I think with our element on that show. I was just super honest, you know, and I think what I'd like to think people took from it is if you work hard and you really do put the hours in, you can be really successful. Yeah. But it's not easy. You know, it's not like the iceberg, you know, that 10% of what you see. It's like 90%. That's the hard graft,
that's
the getting
where it's
in,
all happening,
the handling of that level of rejection. And, you know, because I say to my guys, real estate is like being beaten up 95% in a boxing ring.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it is. You have to be able to handle that. And I think that's quite tough. That's quite tough. A lot of people, they struggle with that.
Well, as long as it's BBC and not Channel 4, it's probably that probably gave you a clue that it'd be safe. All right. And lastly, what's next for AQUA? AQUA Properties.
As a company, we've gone from, you know, we're 500 now? I think when I first joined the company, we were 36 in our office in downtown. Group-wise, we've got over 500 people. We're expanding in many verticals. So from a brokerage perspective, you know, we're at 4 offices now. Our plan is to get to 6 and 7 within the next maybe 12 to 18 months. We take time choosing certain locations. And then from a developments perspective, as a company, you know, we've just almost sold out. We have just literally a handful of units left of our project. It's called the Central Downtown in Arjan. It's 1,200 units.
Give some flavour to that, because people might not know what it is that you do.
So I mean, look, we're very versed and we're very all over the place. So we have a short-term holiday homes business. We do property management. We are a developer. We are a brokerage, and our sister company is an owners association. Manages around 8,000 units in Dubai. It's one of the largest. So we have our fingers across the real estate network. From a development perspective, we launched a few months ago, and 99% sold out of a project called the Central in Arjan, as I just mentioned, which is 4 towers on a centralised podium, which is an entire shopping mall, twice the size of Circle Mall in JVC.
And you work with other agents on these. It's not just exclusive.
I mean, look, I think we are from a development's perspective, we work with every brokerage in town. They just have to come and register with us.
Yeah.
Their data's totally secure. It's very separate. The brokerage is not allowed to see it. And I think we are the sixth most successful company at selling our own projects, right? So there's 5 others that are more successful.
They're doing
than
better
us.
than AQUA.
So which is great. We want to work with other partners. They may have a certain niche with a certain demographic of buyer that we don't have.
Right.
And as such, everybody is welcome. We have several other projects from. I won't mention names, but we have a.
How much is he allowed to say?
Yeah. we have on Sheikh Zayed Road a 5-star branded residence coming in.
Okay.
And then we have in Sports City, we have another project, maybe something else. There's a few things on the go. Yeah, a few things bubbling. And as I mentioned, so the idea is that hand in hand between brokerage, we're opening up more offices, offering value to agents and the clients by being closer to them. From a value perspective, from a projects side of things, we're trying to offer something that's a little bit different. So, whether it be high-end, luxury, or even more affordable. I mean, we launched a project called The Community, which we have another one coming up soon, and that is a co-working, co-living product, which is totally different to a lot of projects launched in this market.
And how do we get registered? Someone wants to register.
Drop an email to info@aquaproperties.com, or go to our social platforms and reach out and take it from there.
Brilliant. And follow Paul. Pavlos. And don't call Pavlos Christodoulou if you happen to be on the database. Unless you want a quick tutorial on how not to call.
Right? Why not? Why not? I mean, I do feel sorry for some guys because you can tell they're nervous and they've not been trained. And I think that's also the important thing. We have an in-house academy. So to bring people on, if we bring experienced people or bring fresh people, they go on a 2-week course of what to do, what not to do.
Yeah.
They go and see our projects. They understand a bit more about why we delve into the detail. So I think those side of things are very important.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.